I mean, nobody's here, so.
Yeah, no one's here yet, so it
So
doesn't
that's
matter.
cool.
Yay!
Yeah.
I know we're up.
No one's here, but we're up. That's fine.
And now we have time to share.
Yeah. And we don't. Oh, yeah, now we can share first.
Yes, we can share.
They can hear you.
That's cool.
That's fine.
They can
We're
hear
good.
banter.
They can hear us.
There's nothing official happening.
It's all good. They're always like, there's always somebody that comes on and says, I can't hear you.
Right.
Always. Never fails. Kris Gina.
Where are you copying to?
My page, I guess, but I'm trying to find it anyway. Where's the... Why is it
Okay.
not pulling up? But there we go.
Hello, whoever just joined us. We're going to be starting in a minute.
That's probably me.
Is that you?
No.
Hey, Gina B. No.
I know, right? Hey.
Hello to you.
How you doing?
We never do this where they can hear us. Now they'll
No,
be.
now they're like, now nobody shows.
Now they're
right?
like, oh, we thought they were really getting ready for the show.
Yeah, and here we are.
Doing
Early.
nothing. We're starting at 6:05 for anyone who might be getting ready to tune in.
That's right.
We don't need them to crack this open, do we?
No, we don't. We can get that party started.
Get a little liquor in me.
Look at Montag. Been married for 26 years. How cute.
Oh, man. You know what?
I love it. We've been married that long. You gotta
Hello,
love 'em.
guest number 2. We're starting at 6:05.
We're just like having a little sippy
Hey,
sip.
quick question. Today we were watching Channel 7 News.
Yeah.
What national day did they say it was? I'm on the phone, Gina.
Oh.
Okay, don't worry about it. All right, bye. I'm on live.
You were so silly.
I'm like, I'm on camera. Gotta go. Gotta go.
Gotta go.
Anybody tuning in, normally you can't hear us until 6:05. But
Today's special.
it's Gina B's birthday.
Woohoo! Yippee.
Jay, can we put happy birthday, Gina B, in the... Or you know what? I will go out, come back in as Christopher leaving. We're happy.
So we have more people? Okay.
I'm trying to open
We
this.
have 5 people now, so we're good.
Uh-oh. It's almost time to start the show. It's Gina B's birthday. So before we start
Thank
this
you.
thing, we're going to get a little sip going.
Because nothing kicks off a birthday like some bubbly. Good people. This is what I'm talking about. That's enough, sir.
It's your
Chris
birthday,
about
right?
to have me falling under the table.
It's your birthday, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my birthday. Well, it's 2 days ago.
And we have one
Celebrating
more.
all week.
We have one more guest that I haven't seen pop on. Look.
Yes, we do. He's not... Where is he?
Gina B, tell people what you're going to do for your 35th birthday while I round up my
Oh,
other
wow.
guests.
Well, I had it the other day, and, this is a low-key birthday for me. Like, last year we were in London. The year before, where was I? This year we didn't do a lot. It was just chill. Very chill. So, but I'm okay with chill. Chill works. Chris is not paying attention.
No, what
he
it
asks
is,
me a question, then
we
doesn't
have
pay
another
attention to
guest,
the answer.
and
I know. We've got to get the guest.
he said he was backstage, but he's not.
He's not backstage.
So I'm going to forward him the link. We're going to start the show. We're going to toast first.
Yes.
Jake, producer Jake, can you refresh real quick?
Does he think he's backstage? Did he do the link? Oh, people, it's always something.
And I'm going to share this with Jake just in case we're live. Jake can step away and call him. And
Just in case.
see what's going on.
He thought he was on? He's not using an old link, is he?
I sent a new one
Okay.
on Messenger. And I just sent him one via email.
Okay.
While we are waiting,
While we're waiting.
here is to you.
Yes.
People, anybody watching about...
There he is.
Okay, yeah, he's up there. Don't bring them in yet. About 5 years ago, I started doing a video, and then it was just me. It was like 4 minutes long, and then I was asked to do a long 1 hour show. And Gina B, what year did you join? Do you even realize it now?
I don't even know.
We've done hundreds of shows.
We have at this point.
To the 250th show.
Right. Cheers.
And your birthday.
We've done live events and
Gina B
everything.
is now 35 years old,
Yeah,
at least.
At least. At most. What are you talking about?
Right.
At very most.
Anyone who hasn't seen our show ever, it's Kris and Gina Relationship Show. I'm Kris. The birthday girl is Gina B.
Yep.
If you hear her refer to me as Kris the Critic, that was the name of the show
Yeah.
before I found Gina B. Before we
just
get
until recently.
exactly right. She had to get promoted. I wasn't just gonna get her on here and change the name.
There was no pay with that promotion. I'm not quite sure what that was about. Usually when I get promoted.
Just so you know, even though your birthday was this is your show birthday.
My show birthday was 2 days ago.
Right. Today is National Holistic Pet Day.
Holistic Pet Day. So
Whatever
does
that
this
is.
mean that you give your pets holistic treatments?
Maybe.
Health? I don't know.
It's actually the 79th anniversary, the birthday of one of America's favorite toys, the Slinky.
Oh,
It's
the
Slinky.
vibrator. No.
That's the new favorite toy.
Right.
I said oldest. It is Romance Awareness
Slinky,
Month.
I wasn't sure.
And Gina B, when do you get married?
I'm getting married soon.
Gina B is getting married within a couple weeks, people. She will be off the market, fellas, but please still come back and watch the
Oh
show.
my God. We saw the best. There was somebody shared this meme.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't even a meme. It was somebody posted that they were engaged, right? And so someone commented, "We lost a great hoe today." It was so wrong.
You were like, oh my God, that's me. No, I'm just
so
playing. That's
wrong.
me. Hey, listen, real quick. So we'll get into it.
Oh, I love it.
So we like to think we do more than tell jokes on here. We try to give relationship advice. People tell me I'm full of it sometimes, but I'm not. I'm always right.
Thanks,
But
Catherine.
every now and then we learn from each other. We realize each other's point of view. And we get to share our thoughts on different subjects in a very civil conversation. Today will be no exception. The topic, religion and relationships, specifically, because I was looking at everything going on around the country, rise in divorce rates. My question was, and if please weigh in on this one. This is one where I'm asking folks to weigh in. Do you think the decline of religion in the United States has affected African American relationships in terms of dating, marriage, child rearing? Gina B is going to probably lead the questioning. I'll chime in
That's right.
with opinion. But we've brought in two guests. We have some very smart friends,
Yes, we do.
friends of the Kris and Gina show.
That's right.
And I'm bringing them in. Jake, could you please bring in Mr. Vernon Kelly, Mr. Sean Smith?
And the crowds go wild. Gentlemen, thank you.
Quick
Thank you for
intro.
having us.
Quick intro. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Quick intro for everybody. Sean and I attended the same high school, same college. What I call very smart, intellectual brother. I learned a lot from him. And also, Vernon Kelly. I've met him later in life. Super sharp guy. Also has his own show. Avid sports person. He actually books like celebrities. And when I ran unsuccessfully for office, he was so gracious to have me on his platform. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Gina B, so just so you know, Gina B is going to start peppering you with questions.
Of course.
Sean may have to leave a couple minutes early.
That's okay.
But we'll take a half an hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes for Sean if we can get him. So I think I got this right. I'm not a super churchgoer, but just so you know, I do attend church, call myself a believer.
And what is your religious affiliation?
Oh, it is Catholic. However,
Catholic, okay.
I'm saying any religion.
Any.
I am of the ilk that
No,
I
I'm
think
just curious.
I think religion sort of helps keep things in order.
I was just curious
I'm
as to what your affiliation
That's cool.
was.
And what's yours?
I don't really have one.
Okay, right. And so I think Sean is probably going to be I don't know if he's the biggest fan of organized religion, and I would think Vernon is probably more similar to me, so I thought it would be maybe a good mix.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's get this party
Start
started.
off with some general questions, and anyone listening, anyone jumping in later, which they normally do, please still ask a question even if you're watching the show on a tape delay, because Gina B and I go back and answer those questions.
Yeah, we do.
And with that, it's no format to this. Gina B, you weigh in, I weigh in, but first let our guests weigh in.
Yeah,
And
let
I'm
our
out.
guests weigh in, and keep in mind there's
Happy
a lot of
birthday.
us. Thank you. And so we want to be succinct, and Sean has limited time. So, all right, we're going to start with the obvious one. Do you think that the decline of organized religion has impacted black marriages. Sean, let's start with you.
No, I do not believe that. Um, I think that's given too much credit to organized religion and its influence on society, and it's particularly in relationships. So my short answer is no.
And so now tell us a little bit about your background. So do you have a religious affiliation?
If I'm asked, I probably would say yes, Baptist. Grew up in the church, went to a Catholic school. Uh,
Damn
you
good
know,
Catholic school.
yeah, I actually
He's not biased.
I actually attended when I lived in Chicago, Trinity Church on 95th. I forget the street it's on, married by Dr. Jeremiah Wright. But in terms of my affiliation, as I've grown older and not worried about how what people think of me and what I think, I've had a lot of questions. So, with those questions and a lack of sufficient answers, religion is not something. I'm not agnostic, and nor am I atheist, but I have a lot more questions than I do answers at this point.
All right, let me ask you this, Sean, and thank you for the candid answer. And actually, I've heard Reverend Wright speak. Awesome speaker. Question: do you think? Let me rephrase that then. That the decline in the belief um, of a higher power has affected. You still believe that that hasn't affected, adversely affected relationships?
No, I don't see a correlation. If someone could direct me to where there is a correlation and it's sufficient enough answer, then I'm willing to have that discussion, but I don't see a direct correlation at this
Okay.
point.
All right.
That's fair.
All right. Let's give.
Let's get to Vernon.
Let's get to Vernon. Vernon, what do you think?
So first of all, it's an honor to be here with you, Kris Gina. Happy belated birthday, Gina. Sean,
Woo.
thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Reverend Jeremiah Wright was one of my favorite preachers growing up. I don't know. I agree with Sean, but I agree with him inadvertently or in an inverse route. And what I mean by that, I don't think that the institution, because when you chop up the word religion, I think there's a false assumption and maybe an unclear narrative that all are the same. And even when you study the word coming from the Latin to the English religio, it was a separation between public duty and private duty, or private becomes or being considered sacred. So therefore, the pantheon religion of, Rome, Greece, Egypt, African spirituality, everything would fit into this religious context. When this is framed in an American conversation, you're specifically addressing Christian Judaism, right? Like that text or that niche. And I think that's where the conversation should start, because if you can't define it, how can you address it, right? And I think that's where we create a lot of confusion, as if it's all the same. And then that would kind of spiral into a deeper nuanced conversation. I think to sum it up, is one's commitment to a particular entity, does it influence behavior and therefore influence your attraction or how you view attraction and how you manage relationships? Then I believe the obvious answer is yes, because everybody operates based off of totemic principles, whether you are atheist or you are of some set of beliefs. Everybody has a central force, whether you ascribe to a deity or you do not subscribe to a deity. You will still operate off of principles to interpret data that is being received. How you go about that is going to determine how you engage in relationships, how you value relationships, what are the ins and outs, how you value intimacy, how you value faithfulness. And that's where it becomes really, I think, tough, because we're not all saying the same thing. And even though we can say the word religion, we all don't mean the same thing. We all don't even mean the same God. And when you start kind of having this back and forth conversation is, can two people who differ in the faith, and that differing being severe, I don't mean like, hey, you're a Baptist or I'm a Methodist. I think that's low-hanging fruit. Or you're a Baptist like myself, I'm a Pentecostal. I think the difference is, are you committed to this love that you have ascribed to, and what does that mean for you and your lifestyle and how you engage in it? I would say that the demise of relationships, particularly in the Black community, is more systemic and not necessarily religion as a whole. I think finances, optics, perception. I think the failure, and this is why I do agree with Sean, is that the institutions of religion has not tried to create an accurate depiction and has created a distorted image of what a relationship should look like. Therefore, it has negatively influenced relationships. So I agree with my brother Sean here, but I just wanted to provide some clarity.
Great.
Can you read Kathy?
Yeah.
Catherine Bowman made a comment. Read that, and I'd like to weigh in on both.
Yeah, she says, I disagree because most religions have marriage as a standard for sexuality between men and women.
Right.
So there would be that. But like, Kris, why don't you weigh in on?
I tend to agree with Catherine Bowman, and here's why I even came up with the idea of the show.
Yes.
And I was, I unsuccessfully ran for office. I was like, we're wrapping my mind around, the crime that we were having in the country. So I started looking up, the effects of religion on crime, which is where it came from.
Right.
And I'll say, and the reason I didn't put a particular denomination, because I don't care what religion it is. I don't care if it's Muslim or Islam. I don't care if it's Catholicism, Baptist, whatever, Judaism. They all say, do not kill, do not steal, don't, honor so-and-so. And it's some reference to a wife. And then there's a belief that regardless of if it's real, I'm not even going into that debate. But if people believe that there's something better, that I can change my behavior here on this realm, it leads to different outcomes.
Okay.
And so I looked this up obviously before. You can look up studies. This one came from Institute of Family Studies. There's studies that say married couples that attend religious services, 50% less likely to divorce than those who do not. They associate people with religion with lower risk of death, depression, and divorce. And, go to different places. The numbers may vary a little bit, but they all sort of say the same thing.
Right.
And those people then tend to, I think they just simply work harder to figure it out. They have more respect for the other person. I know specifically a lot of religions, you do a lot of premarital counseling. Like you go in with your eyes open.
Right.
And you have a more realistic view of what it is. In terms of, Sean mentioned we went to Catholic school. I'm not saying that we use different books.
What do we have from Jamal?
But I will say that the outcomes of those where there was more discipline in the school, when there was less disruption, less violence, the outcomes were better. So, again, I'm looking at this from a results standpoint, not is one better or does it exist. And lastly, I'll say that one other stat that I thought was interesting, and I say this on the show a lot, it says women who grew up in practicing religions are about 20% less to begin cohabitation in any union prior to marriage. And those marriages tend to last longer. Even those, and again, I can cite the source of anything, even those who marry in their early 20s. And, we've been told today to marry later.
Right, we've been told, but to Catherine Bowman's point that was just up on the screen,
sure,
the majority of religion also states do not commit fornication.
Right.
So that could be the reason. Like, I used to work with a woman who was Mormon, and she got married at around the age of 20 or 21, which I swear was just so they could have sex.
Right, maybe.
So that was just, that's, the tenet.
Can I interject?
Sure, Sean, what would you like to say?
Religion is often used as a tool to control. I don't want to use the word indoctrination. That's a pretty strong word.
Well, I agree with you. It is.
And those who attend church, and I'm going to speak to the study that you spoke of. I haven't read it, but just speaking off what I've witnessed and what I've seen is that those who attend church more often have the mind frame of we don't believe in divorce, so we fight through this. And it's a tool that's used to kind of control people. And I think to a certain extent, that mind frame that people are in religion, um, some people use it as it suits their desires. And I'll give you as this example. Religion was also used to justify slavery. Religion is and there are many contradictions in religion, which is what I spoke of earlier, what I alluded to earlier about the contradictions and the questions that I have, because you have the do not kill. However, we have a government that believes in capital punishment. And people look at religion to talk about how you rear and raise a child. But they believe in capital punishment, but they don't believe in corporal punishment, which has resulted in some of our kids not having respect for authority, which I believe has a small fraction of a part in where the crime rate that you spoke of earlier in increasing because of the lack of authority and a lack of community amongst, and I'll just speak for us, the village that we have. The Black people that I grew up in a village,
So you think these people out here, you think these folks out here carjacking and robbing and stealing, Sean, are showing up at church on Sunday or no? You think the majority go to church or the majority are not?
There's a fraction of them that do. I mean, because we all joke all the time.
But we all agree that the majority of them don't.
Majority of them don't.
Right.
Well, they don't have any kind of structure.
But that's my whole point. That's my whole point to religion.
Yeah.
But
Sean was on the money. Keep going. I'm sorry.
But is that lack of structure religious structure, or is that structure from home? Because when I grew up, when I moved to Chicago with my mom, we attended church a lot, but I had structure at home and I knew not to act up. And we didn't attend church a lot at the high school that you and I went to, but we had structure at that school.
Absolutely.
And we don't have structure. Too many people are worried about corporal punishment, making corporal punishment illegal. So we have removed that aspect from the classroom and even from the community. You can't even speak with a child now without some sort of disrespect coming from them. So I don't know if that's due to religion or is that more a structure in the home, which you alluded to earlier about the increase in divorce. So there's a lack of two-parent homes. So I'll go back to what I said. We're giving too much credit to religion and what it's able to do in terms of our society and what the positive is. I'm not saying there's no positive from religion. I'm never going to say that. But what I'm saying is we don't want to give too much credit to what religion can and will do.
And I tend to agree with that. But go ahead, Gina.
Well, see, I always think that religion and having not been raised in a organized religion, like I was never baptized, my parents were kind of isolated from their family, with only Chicagoans, blah blah blah.
And
but
they
I
were
really
ballers.
Whatever. I feel like religion is needs based, right? And I also feel like if people need structure, people need consequences to keep them from getting out of hand, right? And so a lot of people who are embroiled in religion are living in fear of their afterlife, right? Like if you do this, you're going to hell. Right, so there's consequence to your actions.
Control.
And but that's also the same thing that could be in the home, right? Like a lot of the problem that we're having with a lot of kids right now with the carjacking is they know that there are no consequences to their actions, and so they're wilding out because they know nobody's prosecuting them. They know no one's beating their ass at home.
Sure.
It's a whole structure that's missing, and whether you need religion for that or whether you could control that some other kind of way, but that's kind of what's keeping people in line.
Sure.
But the structure at home is more immediate than religion. The consequences of religion are more received after you die, supposedly. Exactly. There's a heaven and hell. But the structure in the home is more immediate. You mess up in school, by the time you get home, your dad's home, you got your ass beat. At least that's what it was for me.
I want to hear from Vernon, but real quick, I just
Jamal
want to say,
called me a heathen.
I don't disagree with anything that Sean said. I agree with all of it.
Right.
I do think it's a form of control. I think it's a form of needed control.
Right.
I think religion, when you think about it, you think about the earliest forms of education, it was religion they knew it was keeping folks in line. I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting it's a form of control, call it brainwashing, whatever. All I'm saying is I see less of it. They take it out of the schools, and I see less of that, whatever you want to call it, however you want to view it, the right parts of it, the wrong parts of it. I see a decline in our relationship, specifically in our community, because as you alluded, I didn't agree with all of it. People make a choice, right? But they do use it, and they will say they need it. when to deal with the pressures of life, period.
Right.
All
It's
right.
whatever you need to get yourself through.
So exactly. So in that aspect, those without it, you know, I sort of want people controlled if that's the outcome of religion. I think a byproduct of any religion is order, civility, respect for one's life, respect for someone else's life. And that is what I think we're missing, because we talk about marriage on this show, relationships. I mean, the religious couple and the non-religious couple take very similar vows. Richer, poor,
Right.
better, worse.
worse.
So you know what? They may know how to, okay, I knew this was possible. I vowed to stay here. I want to be here. It's conviction for them. Doesn't make them being controlled. It makes them being devoted to their union that they made a vow for, that they
Right.
knew
Well,
wholeheartedly
in that
went
case,
into.
yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Right. In that case, yes.
right.
But anyway, let's look at some comments because
yeah,
Monica,
I didn't go to Vernon after that.
Yeah, Monica. Okay, go ahead, Jake. What was that one? Religion can, okay, Catherine Bummer. Religion can obviously be used for negative purposes, including the mistreatment of women, because it is very patriarchal. It is very misogynistic.
But that's almost like saying we got textbooks. These textbooks were used to write the notes of slaves in.
Okay.
All right, everything can be
the
used
quote.
for right or
Let me
wrong.
finish the quote. However, I still believe it set a good standard for male-female relationships. Jamal Maatuka said, did Gina just say she was a heathen? Yes, I did.
Jamal, wait, is Jamal brother Matuk on here? I almost
Yeah,
got
he's
him
up
on the
there. Oh,
show, too.
yeah. He said, did Gina just say she's a heathen? I absolutely did.
Religion is a man-made. What does it say?
Your spiritual relationship with God is God-made. Exactly. Like, where did all this come from?
It's not.
Who is creating?
There's a difference between those two. It's a subtle difference. Spirituality doesn't. And I got notes on that because I
know
knew
you
someone
do.
always throws that out
I
there
know you
because they
have
don't like
notes.
getting up on Sunday.
Chris got a list.
They don't like getting up on Sunday, but
I don't either.
and that's fine. But
shopping on a
spirituality doesn't. There is no communion with you and your fellow man. It's just you and your thoughts. And when you get together, and I wrote it. Religion provides opportunities for community, new perspectives, because you hear from people other than your own mind.
Right, which you can get socially.
Some of those ancient rituals you get to hear about. Some you may agree with, ones you not. Some you question. There's a collective belonging through music, through worship, through listening to someone speak to you that you do not get through spirituality. However, some of the results of spirituality have been similar in the studies.
I don't know. I consider myself a spiritual person, but I don't. I have principles that keep me in line.
Can you really teach yourself anything, or do you learn from other people?
I mean, who says you can't learn spirituality from other people?
No. But if you're by yourself, you and your
Who says you're by yourself in your spirituality?
That's
You
church.
learn more than you talk.
That's church.
That's not necessarily church.
You
Is it?
learn
Okay, let's
more
see.
than
Does it
you
have to be?
talk.
Let's hear from Vernon.
I'm sorry, Sean. What did you say?
You learn more than you taught.
Yeah, you learn more than you're taught. You're absolutely right. You do.
I agree with that. Why, I told you got some smart people. I'm not disagreeing with really much anything, but I do want to hear what Vernon's
you've been
thoughts on what
quiet
you've
for a
been hearing,
minute.
brother.
What you got?
No,
I
you're
see
good.
Vernon came prepared. I see notes.
He's got
No,
diagrams in the back.
got a Venn
I'm waiting
diagram
for.
Pull that rosary out. Let's start.
No, I'm waiting for my specific question, like Sean got his. But
go ahead. Hey man, you can jump ahead, brother. There's no way here.
It's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of information and a lot of comments. I think to dial it back and to sum it up, every institution is going to have hypocrisy because it is executed by human beings. The definition, I think, of humanity is inconsistency. Human beings will be human. It doesn't matter if it's in the form of religion, if it's in the form of politics, if it's in the form of education, if it's in the form of fitness. There will always be lapse, right? Moral discard. So that, I think, goes without saying. If Kris's focus is to look purely on outcome, and I think this ties into what Gina brought up with the Mormon example, those that do ascribe to whatever, if they have this as parameters in which relationships should be entertained and engagement and the healthy balance of such, you do have to look at the numbers. Marriages in this sect, I won't say church because obviously we're using religion as a blanket. I wouldn't, but for your show, they are more successful.
Vernon, those numbers differ from religion.
They do.
So you're right, but
They
they
do.
all skew better than the norm.
They're the norm. So if we look at the numbers, right, and if we're analytically driven, and the numbers, there's old saying, "In God we trust, and all things bring numbers." If that is true, then it seems like God is winning. When we look at the relationships and the marriages that come from these sects, why do they get married younger? Why do they have a lasting or longer lasting effect? Why is their divorce rate much lower? That has to be looked at. I don't know if I have the exact answer, but all I can speak for is my own experience. I think, by today's standard, I got married pretty young. I proposed to my wife at 24. We got married when I was 25. We've been married now 9 years, just got back from Cancun. My grandparents were married over 60 years before my grandfather passed away. All I saw was success, and all I saw was successfully demonstrated in this exact model, right? I didn't see divorce. I didn't see, outside children. I didn't see abuse. So I can't speak to a situation like that. I can tell you that if you do it God's way and really examine the scriptures and study them for yourselves, I think you can create something magnificent and special that doesn't discredit others that don't, necessarily partake in that. But you do have to look at the numbers. So I guess to my point, I think there's a lot here. I would say, why not? And maybe the question that should be asked is, can somebody of a particular niche or particular sect be married or engaged or in this romantic relationship with somebody that does not practice? Do they have a successful outcome? Can they have success? And if you look at that, then that's a different set of criteria, and that opens up Pandora's box, right? So, but I agree with Sean, and I agree with both of you. It's just a lot there to unpack.
Yeah, and that's a
I want
assessment.
Can I say quickly?
No,
Sure.
go ahead, take your time. You don't want First off, we know you got to leave a little early. So yeah, Sean, anytime you want to jump in, don't even raise your hand. Just start talking.
I'm staying for this. I'm staying for this. You bring up the numbers of more people who are have foundation in religion for their marriage remain married, but that's just numbers. Are we talking about the quality of the marriage? Because people remain in marriage for years when they sleep in separate bedrooms and so on and so forth. So those numbers are just
that's almost like somebody saying, "Oh, all married people are unhappy." Well, there's single people who are unhappy.
Right.
Happiness,
and that would be hard to quantify.
That is
exactly. But my point is quantifying that these people remain married doesn't completely strengthen the argument. Just because you're married doesn't mean your quality is better than someone who was in a relationship, got married and divorced.
True.
It doesn't mean it's better.
Very true.
True,
but it doesn't disprove it either.
Right, and it's really not congruent to your statement. You're absolutely right. Just because you stay married, it doesn't mean that you're more successful. However, if you can't define what success is, and since we can't actually provide a barometer of what a healthy relationship looks like, how do we assess it? So it doesn't matter when you say that, right? Like, I don't know, because, you can be perfectly happy and single, and there's no sin, and God is completely okay with that, right? So, like, you're right, Sean. But the problem is, nobody here, whether you are or you're not, or you believe or you don't believe, there is no litmus test on what does success in a marriage look like. And since the Bible doesn't define it, and we really can't, we have to say, based off what your Instagram likes, so I really don't know. I can tell you how to maintain what health and safety looks like, but that happiness, that's subjective.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, and again, this wasn't a show pro-religion or anti-religion. I'm looking at the outcomes because I saw how the world used to be. Even in public schools, they said a prayer. Mm-hmm. I used the analogy that, I used to know hard thugs selling drugs. If an old lady walked by, they'd stop cursing. Hey, be quiet, man. Here comes somebody.
Right.
They all at least had that.
Well, are we attributing that to religion?
I think so.
Okay,
but I am. I mean, you shouldn't have to. Make no mistake. But part of it is they spoke more of morality in schools than in past years. But even in public schools, they had more right to discipline. I think to your point earlier.
Are you applauding a respectful drug dealer?
No, I'm applauding his at least being able to be quiet. Somebody old,
he's applauding his.
at least the old lady doesn't have
elder.
to feel scared.
Yeah, his elder deference.
But in this country,
right
we seem to, and I've done this. I'm guilty of this as well. Sometimes if I've thought something a long time, or I believe, and I don't want to change my mind no matter what the outcome is. Somebody could tell me. I mean, you could go out and tell all black folks, hey, our income, if we could guarantee them our income would go up, right? 40% per African American combined income and tax returns if we voted for a different party. We just wouldn't change. We'd say no, we still can't do it, can't believe it. We just wouldn't. We're just a society that just doesn't want to accept anything. And I know that I've been guilty of it. And I'm trying not to be, because I've noticed the people that do really well in whatever discipline, whatever they do, they tend to be more open. They tend to pull beliefs from here, and they tend to continually learn. And I'm just trying to see what works at this point, which is why we're having a discussion. Okay. Religion, as you all know, has really controlled the world for so long, for right and wrong purposes. Make no mistake. I'm just trying to look at the benefits in terms of relationships, which I think we're struggling with grossly in our community.
We are. Okay, so all the people here are married or about to be, right? So now, here's the question.
Woo, Gina B, man, show everybody that rock. Sit down.
Everyone's seen the rock. Everyone's seen the rock.
Sit
okay,
down.
So my question is, did religion play a part in your choice of a mate? And let me just give you I always feel that people should be on the same page with it, right? And so I have dated in very loose, like just gotten to know people who I could
Instagram career?
No. Gotten to know people who it was very clear in the very beginning that their goal was to try to get me to go to church with them, which did nothing but make me want to give them the
You're like, whoa.
Right? I was
trying to do other things.
You cannot make me, your belief is never going to be mine. Let's not try to. But maybe what they need is somebody who is amenable to that. So sure. I'm just curious, and I'll start with, and that's the question is, if someone either believes or doesn't, was that a choice? So Vernon, tell me, you've been married for a good 10 years at this point. Was that, when you chose your wife, was that something that you looked for?
It was definitely seriously weighted and something that had to be. And it's because it wasn't just religion. It's also my calling, and it was what I was currently doing, what I'm doing now. At the time I was just, an associate minister trainee. And now, I've been in leadership. I've been considered for pastoralship for a couple churches. I've served in youth pastoralship. So I knew that if this is my life, I have to marry somebody that agrees. It's not that I could not have fallen in love and with a woman who doesn't necessarily ascribe to it or doesn't want to be at church all the time. The real question is, how can we share this space, particularly if I'm going to give it so much time, right? Like ministry, church, it takes up a great deal of resource, right? It's not just Sunday, Tuesday Bible study, where we're doing youth initiatives in Inglewood, when I'm out in Kankakee serving at a very, elderly church. Like there's a lot of commitment and a lot of just investment into this. If somebody doesn't have that, it might be a turnoff for them. And what you will find, I think, in any relationship is whatever you are a part of or whatever is a big part of your identity, the other person has to at least reflect it. They don't have to necessarily be it, but they can't be counterproductive towards it. If I would, if you married Michael Jordan, you got to at least like the Jordan brand. Yeah, you sitting here wearing Adidas, it would be counterproductive. So for me, yes, my wife had to have some level of commitment toward it. She had to enjoy what I do. Has to have the same respect, because it's going to change everything. How we interact. If I want to go to a revival, like I just emceed a revival, and then you want to go to the club, it's going to look funny when, Reverend Cody's at the revival, you at the club. It's not that you going to the club makes you anti-God, because it doesn't. It's not that you are this evil person, because you're not. It's just that this is what I am. Right? Okay. And it's more of an identity. So if that's your identity, you have to kind of partner with somebody that shares that value.
Okay, sure. I'm going to turn it to Sean, because Sean's got to dip off. So Sean, what was your thought?
We got time.
Oh, we got time. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, but still.
So No, religion did not play a huge role in my selection of my wife. And as I stated the last time I was on the show, I've been married 24 years now. And my wife and my mother-in-law, who resides with us, very religious. Go to church every Sunday physically, and then when COVID hit, now they're watching um, church service on television through the internet. And that's not something, as someone alluded to earlier, I like to sleep in on Sundays and Saturdays too. So it was not a huge part of my religion. Now, belief in a higher power, spirituality, that sort of thing, yes, that was part of it. But as Vernon just alluded to as well, it couldn't be completely counter to what I believe in terms of a higher power or spirituality or religion in my selection of a wife. So we have different degrees of attending church and belief in church and reading the quote unquote good book. But it's not that far fetched where I'm counter to what she believes in and what she grew up in. So it wasn't a huge part of my identity. It wasn't a huge part of my selection process either.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that she wishes that you would get into church with her? Or is she perfectly okay with you sleeping
My
on
wife is
Sunday?
the quintessential strong black woman who will tell me exactly how she feels. And no, she has expressed that she does wish that I would attend a little bit more or be more vocal and conversational about it. But it's not to the point where it bothers her in terms of our relationship. Never that.
My wife
Now,
is the same way.
remind me, Sean, do you
She's
have
very vocal
children?
on who she is and what she wants.
Now, remind me, do you have
Yes,
kids?
yes, they're all,
Okay.
they're go, yeah.
Yeah, and so, how did you raise your children as far as religion is concerned?
Um, Initially, it was her, you got to get up and go to church with me. And I tried to be a reflection of that. But when you don't want to be there, it becomes part of your disposition and your face. So I couldn't have that poker face. So as my kids grew older, now my youngest child, she's 20 and my oldest is 28. The time they reached high school, it was, I'm staying home with dad. So we didn't force that upon them, but they do have a religious foundation. They do believe in a higher power. My wife sends them spiritual, proverbs and things of that sort, as well as she does me. But that wasn't once they got old enough, they made their own decision.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious as to that kind of separation of faith in the household, how that usually plays itself out. Okay. Kris, you say what? What about you?
Similar to Sean, but mine was, and I think Vernon mentioned it earlier. We had a situation. First off, the answer is, the only way I would have married anybody is if I knew they didn't have to be super into the church, but at some point in their life, somebody, their mother or grandmother, took them to somebody's church.
Right.
I just think that those people. I've just seen so many of those people, especially when they get older, care for others when they didn't have to. And I always wanted to marry somebody with a good spirit, that I know I could depend on, like for real, better or worse,
Now,
not just better, which is what a lot of people do. And we had two different religions.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic, but I like going to other churches. I've since.
Because Catholic church is boring.
My wife is like, for real, stand, kneel, sit, for real, I need some shouting. And me, I'm like, there's too much going on in here. I'm like, that's phony, that's fake. Anyway, but I have found to take the good out of what I like. I mean, we've gone to Savior's Day.
There's something to learn.
We go to Savior's Day now, and I enjoy it.
There's a lot
Somebody
to learn
invites
there.
me to I'll go. I'll
It's
check
fun.
it out.
No.
But I don't hold her, and she doesn't hold me to any particular thing. Mm-hmm. The only thing I said was, my mother, though, is a devout Catholic. This happens, these kids, they're going to go to somebody, they're going to go to this church if you want my mother to like you. So, and like I said, similar to Sean, as my oldest got older, she decided to do what she wants to do, but she's still a, believer. And I just think that puts a little bit of goodness into a child, just a little bit exposed, even if they choose to do something else. So that's my thoughts on it.
Okay. Well, I think, my parents, it's kind of interesting. My mom is the youngest of 11, My father's the oldest of 8, and I think that my mom's side of the family, they were split among the siblings as to what religion they were.
Really?
My mother, the younger siblings, for some reason are Catholic. The older siblings, for some reason, are not. I don't know why. My dad's side, some of them are Baptist, some of them aren't, whatever. I think that their union is based on the fact that neither of them are devout for their religion, right? Like, so my mother was not a devout. She was a fashion Catholic, which means that anything that required getting cute, she was like, okay, we'll go to church. I can dress my child in a little suit, whatever. My father was like, I'm good. My uncle is very big in the church, and his church is the kind that has all the fire and brimstone and, whatever. He's got a very interesting church. But I think that the way I was raised was just kind of like the golden rule, be a good person. Like, just take the things from the religions and learn from everyone, and just realize that everyone can teach you something.
Right.
And just try to, because would you consider me to be a good person who takes care of their parents and whatever?
And, yeah, I'm not saying it is and you are an awesome child, by the way. If for those who don't know, Gina, gentlemen, if you see a woman, she's taking care of somebody older, a parent, a loved one, that is one to seriously consider. Just saying. You look at people how they do.
Yes. So your boy,
Khalid Hankins
is saying those were good people. The church doesn't necessarily create good people by a long shot. Yes, there's a lot of corruption in the church.
But again,
there's corruption everywhere.
First off, thanks Khalid for joining. But like we said earlier, the church doesn't necessarily create good people by a long shot. You're absolutely right.
Right. We see it in the news almost daily.
But I see a lot of people without church, probably more without church, that are not good people as well. So, the show tonight was on the outcomes say that, and Vernon mentioned, I hadn't even gotten to it yet, not only do a lot of religious people get married early, and normally stats say you get married early 20s, it's going to end bad. You haven't gone out, you haven't done this. Those people actually tend to stay together longer. It's crazy. For those who are, most African Americans have been getting married later, right? I got married later on.
That's our generation, I think.
But even the educated ones who went to college and did all this, but still, even those folks, the ones who get married in the 20s, tend to do better than those who get married later. So I think, as my relatives in the South used to say who were not Catholic, they believe in getting married younger because they said we get more stuck in our ways.
As we get older.
Yeah. Men and women.
Hard to share that closet space.
Right.
You get older, you're like, get out of my stuff.
I saw Nate Turner with a couple comments. Scroll back up. It was one that
Yeah, he has some good ones I saw scrolling down.
Nate Turner, who's... I've seen crackheads together forever. Per my dad, find someone as messed up as you. Yeah, that's probably true. And what I think his dad was really saying, he's joking with it, but to your point, you find someone who's sort of like you.
Right.
You
can respect each other.
Right. You find somebody, because we all got flaws, but find someone right around where you are.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that crackheads should. All relationships are the same, male, female. But there's another comment that's a little further up, Jake, if you scroll. We had a lot of great comments, so thanks you guys for really chiming in.
What did Catherine Bowman say?
My relationships became a lot better when I started to apply my religious beliefs to what I was doing, starting with dating those with similar beliefs. Well, that's just dating somebody with a similarity to you. I
think one of the things, though, that even though Sean isn't the biggest religious person, and you say you aren't, and we said this at the beginning of the show, you shouldn't have to have religion to be a civil, great, high-functioning, awesome-ass human.
No.
I wasn't trying to say that, because obviously there are people like that.
Right.
And again, what spurred me to do this show is I just see so many without guidance, and I just remember the Catholic school upbringing that we had that sort of helped. It sort of kept you on the rails. So that sparked this whole conversation, but you shouldn't have to. But in terms of picking someone, when it comes to marriage, especially men, I have daughters, I'm telling them to pick somebody with character.
Well.
And they don't necessarily have to be religious, but this whole character And Nate Turner's about to say
Yeah.
what I really want to say.
Exactly. Okay, so
but
let's
he's
read
going-
that one.
Read that one, please.
Yep,
read that
I'll
for me.
read that one. Nate Turner's comment: your marital thoughts are all because of your example. Women with no man in the home usually don't hold the marriage in high regard. If your parents were together a long time and that's your example, you will, I think he means stick stuff out to
Yeah.
make things work. Those two people spoke of previously.
That may have to be a show next week.
I think that's accurate. I'll tell you what. Personally, I had examples of very long marriages in my life. My parents were married till my mom passed away. They've married 40 plus years. My aunts and uncles, all the aforementioned relatives that I
Right.
had were all married for what seemed like an eternity. And so that is my barometer.
But in that example, though, I can tell you, Vernon, you don't have any kids on the way yet, do you? No, so I didn't think so. So Sean, though, has 3 kids, right?
20 to 28.
And they're all, I have to say,
28, and 20.
the men I know with sons and daughters who, their kids are doing well. His kids are doing phenomenal. I'm thankful my kids are doing fairly well.
His kids are great.
But I'm just saying, I think to what Nate Turner says, that needs to be a show. It's almost bad to speak of, no guy. This country right now, I don't know what they're on, but if you speak of the nuclear family, people yell at you, you don't need that. They're quick to tell you the bad stuff that happens.
Right.
Yeah, I know a married couple their kids are horrible. That's what they want to do. I don't know why people do that. But we're going to definitely do a show on that.
We should, because you know what? I dated a couple of people and I said I wouldn't do this anymore, and it's not fair because it's not their fault. But
Right.
there's a couple guys that I dated that were they were from crazy homes where their parents weren't married, and that's not their fault per
Right.
se, but that shows up places.
Right.
And
Right.
and then my upbringing showed up places, and I could tell that the upbringing that was going to be a really rocky foundation. So I was like, all right, we're going to need to do a little bit of delving.
I didn't have that example of a long relationship growing up. I didn't see that at all.
Okay.
With my parents or even uncles and aunts and things of that sort. But what that made me cognizant of is what I don't want as a
That's a good
as a
point.
father, as a husband. So I gave my kids what I longed for growing up, and I told all 3 of my kids growing up, me as your father, it's a gift and it's a curse. It's a gift because I'm always going to be there for you, but it's also a curse because I'm always going to be there for you.
You're not getting rid of me.
Right.
You're not getting rid of me. And so this has come to fruition, particularly with my daughter, who goes away this Saturday back to New York to school. And I call her and she's like, Dad, I'm in New York. I'm no longer your responsibility. You don't have to do this, that, and the other.
I hate that feeling. I've gone through that.
My father still thinks that I'm his responsibility, and he's 97 years old. So I don't think that goes away.
Hey, Sean, I think some men do adopt that. I've heard, I think it was LeBron James. Regardless of what you think about his flopping, the guy's a great dad. And he used not having, he wasn't going to be that.
Right.
And I wish more men did that.
It can push you to polar opposite.
And I do think the single mom back in the day was cut from a way different cloth than the single mom these days.
Yeah.
The single
Totally
mom back in the day
different
that I
show.
knew,
Oh my God.
they were beasts. And everybody I know with a single mom is thriving.
Yeah. Right.
But now it's too. I don't know what's going on. That's why I came to this whole religion thing. Right. Those women, they believed in a higher power. In most of the ones I know.
Right.
Anyway, we had Kevin Harmon left us a book. And
Let's read it. Okay. Religion and marriage often have a close connection, as many cultures and faiths view marriage as a sacred institution. Religious beliefs can shape the values, rituals, and guidelines surrounding marriage, influencing everything from the ceremony itself to the roles and responsibility of spouses within the marriage. Different religions have varying perspectives on who can marry, how marriages are conducted, and the significance of marriage within the context of one's faith. While religion, then I don't know what.
But he's right. and what he's saying is, and I'm going back to what Sean said, a lot of that is control.
Right.
And make no mistake, the folks who, whenever religion, when they started government, they knew folks followed religion.
Right.
And they knew it was a way for order and
order and control.
And I just look at it like, it's not a bad byproduct to have.
Right.
That's the only reason I look at it as I do.
Okay.
But yeah.
Very fair.
We got any more before we, Jen, I'm going to let you, if you want to get one last question to them before we close out. I know you.
I asked most of my questions, but
Right.
we can
First
ask
off,
the
you guys,
last one. You guys are great.
Yeah, these are, I've had Sean.
Brilliant guests.
Sean has the record for the amount of times we've had him on the show. Probably. At least
so?
3. We've had him on at least 3 times.
Oh, yeah, over the years.
He and Goody. We'd have a sexologist.
Goody.
You and the sexologist, Sean, are right up there.
They have different.
But Vernon, I'm glad you came on.
We appreciate it.
Because I was trying. He mentioned to me, he's like, man, I might want to be on the show. And I was trying to think of a topic, and I've wanted to do this topic, but I needed somebody who knew more than me on this, and I knew that would be good. Because Sean's going to come with it every time.
Chris is admitting that you know more than him, which is saying quite a bit.
But that is that's my spiritual workout, buddy. Eventually, I'm going to lose this, and he's at the gym. What time do you go every morning? I know you haven't seen me in 3 months, but
I try to get there by 5:30, man.
What, 5:30? Man,
that's religion, sir.
Listen, he's already worked up a sweat, and then I go in, and 40 minutes later, I'm walking out. He's still there.
Is this over at LA Fitness?
So I try to sneak out when he doesn't look at me, just so you know.
Oh, okay. You see Chris like sneaking out the door. Well, okay. So I want to close by thanking everyone who wished me a happy birthday.
It is.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed the toast.
Thank you.
Hey,
That's okay. Cheers.
Happy birthday, Gina B. Sean, Vernon, look, this won't be the last time for either of you. Because, believe it or not, it's harder for us to get male guests on the show. I get a lot of guys, especially on this topic. A lot of brothers are like, I don't know. I mean, everybody is scared of everything. So I appreciate you all for coming on the show. I knew it would be a very civil conversation. For those who left comments, thank you. We go back and look at those comments.
Yes.
Next week we'll be back to doing something extremely salacious. We won't
we will not disappoint. Well, next week we have an expert.
We
have a psychologist coming on. We're gonna get something nice. So if you have questions for a clinical psychologist, then please.
Usually when we have guests on the show, is when I try and have the tougher topics.
Right.
Because then people won't be like, Chris ain't shit. He said this. So I let the experts say stuff, and that's sort of way. Or I let our guests say things. But thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you joining. Sean, thank you for making time. Vernon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you will be back soon. Gina B, enjoy your birthday celebration later. And here's to you for joining the show. Salute everybody. Jake, thanks for joining.
Thanks for tuning in.
And thank you all for joining the show. We'll see you next week, 6:05 p.m. on the Kris Gina Relationship Show. Peace.